Megan often found herself lost in the memories of her younger days, when the skies of Georgia seemed brighter and her worries were few. She often drifted back to those carefree summers, filled with familiar faces and simple routines, starkly different from the tangled web of her adult life. As she juggled the complexities of her current reality, Megan frequently reflected on the people who had come and gone, each one leaving a unique imprint on her heart. Every relationship and every heartbreak had shaped her, carving out the person she had become. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, Megan glanced at the clock. It was already 1 p.m. She was sipping on a glass of wine, something she rarely did this early in the day, but today felt different. Her eyes were drawn to a slender, crimson box resting on the coffee table, a recent arrival that had stirred sorrow rather than joy. She picked it up, carrying it to her bedroom, and placed it gently on the bed before turning to her closet. After rummaging through various keepsakes and old boxes, she found a small plastic case lined with rows of boxes in different colors. She added the red box to the collection, wondering why she couldn't bring herself to let go of these mementos. By chance, she opened one of the older boxes and discovered a faded postcard alongside a CD. Intrigued, she slid the CD into her player, and the soothing melody of When I Fall in Love by Nat King Cole filled the room. She smiled, recognizing who had sent the card, and her mind drifted back to the day it arrived, accompanied by a large bouquet at her office. Her coworkers had crowded around her desk, eager to know who the flowers were from. With a mix of pride and excitement, Megan had confidently played the CD, and the other women in the office had teased her, curious about the message inside the card. She had read it aloud. When I give my heart, I give it all. Otherwise, I'll never fall in love. And the moment I feel it, that you feel it too, that's when I fall in love with you. The room had fallen silent, the teasing momentarily forgotten. Then, one of her colleagues, Sarah, had sighed and said, "This guy sounds like a keeper. Does he have a brother?" Megan had laughed, momentarily allowing herself to believe she had something special. But no matter how perfect those moments seemed, the memory of her first love, Ben Harris, always lingered in the back of her mind. Ben had been her high school sweetheart, the one who took her to prom and shared her first moments of true intimacy. But after he left for Duke University, their connection slowly faded, and eventually, it disappeared altogether, leaving Megan heartbroken. She had dropped out of college shortly after, taking a monotonous job at a local insurance firm. Her days blurred together, with little to look forward to besides her evening walks with her best friend, Laura. She had held on to the hope of hearing from Ben again, only to learn through mutual friends that he had moved on with someone else. Despite the pain, Megan couldn't help but imagine what her life might have been like if things had worked out with Ben. She often daydreamed about being Mrs. Dr. Ben Harris, but those thoughts were bittersweet. Even though she tried to move on, his memory was always there, lurking in the corners of her mind. Megan was undeniably attractive, not in a conventional way, but with a natural allure that seemed to draw men to her effortlessly. Even while she was dating Ben, other men often showed interest in her. Standing at 5'6" with long, auburn hair parted down the middle, she had a subtle sensuality that was hard to ignore. After Ben, she had a few relationships, but none lasted long, except one that stretched to 5 months. Her unresolved feelings for Ben haunted her, casting a shadow over each new relationship. At 27, she met Alex, a man who was unlike anyone she had dated before. Alex had joined the Marines at 18, serving in various parts of the world, including Iraq and Germany, before finally settling down. He had opened an auto repair shop in Georgia, not far from Megan's workplace. The first time he saw her, she was with Laura, and she immediately caught his eye with her white blouse, short black skirt, and high heels. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Megan called out as they entered the shop. Alex stepped out from his office, offering to help with her car, which had broken down just around the corner. He quickly fixed the problem, a loose wire, earning a grateful smile from Megan. She thanked him with a playful kiss on the cheek and, on a whim, invited him to dinner. Alex, flustered but intrigued, eagerly accepted. As Megan walked away, Ben's face flashed through her mind, but she pushed the thought aside, feeling a strange connection with Alex. She handed him her business card, and told him to call her for directions. Alex, thrilled, promised he would. As they left, Laura gave Megan a concerned look, but Megan just shrugged it off, promising to call her after the date to assure her everything was fine. They both laughed, and Megan told Alex to come over at 7 p.m. sharp. Alex arrived a bit early, but waited in his car until the clock struck 7 before knocking on the door. Inside, Megan was stirring a pot of sauce, giving herself a once-over in the mirror. She smiled when she heard the knock again, savoring the anticipation. "Just a minute," she called out, letting him wait a little longer. Alex sighed in relief when she finally opened the door, revealing a radiant Megan. She welcomed him in, accepting the bottle of wine and the small bouquet of flowers he had brought. She placed the flowers in a vase and led him to the dining room, where he admired how stunning she looked in a white blouse tucked in a form-fitting black jeans. Barefoot, she seemed even more alluring, a detail that didn't escape Alex's notice. They enjoyed a meal of chicken cacciatore with spaghetti, made from Megan's homemade sauce. The food was delicious, and their conversation flowed naturally as they shared stories of their past and discussed their hopes for the future. Megan discovered that Alex owned not just one, but 3 auto repair shops, including the one where they had met. He had contracts with several major companies and even the military. The shop where they first crossed paths was the largest, with a dozen service bays, including one for luxury vehicles like Ferraris. Alex admitted he had forgotten to lock up that day, but it had turned out to be a blessing in disguise. He also talked about his home, a cozy 3-bedroom house just outside of town, which he had bought a couple of years ago. Megan felt her instincts about him were right. There was something special here. As the evening came to an end, Megan, feeling bold, asked Alex to stay a little longer. Though tempted, Alex politely declined, wanting to take things slow and build a meaningful connection. Megan appreciated his approach, seeing it as a sign of something genuine. Alex left, but his thoughts were consumed by Megan and the possibilities that lay ahead. Meanwhile, Megan called Laura to share every detail of the evening, including her bold invitation and Alex's respectful refusal. Laura was stunned that he had turned her down, and they both laughed about it, knowing it only made Megan more curious about where this could lead. Megan laughed off Laura's teasing suggestion that Alex must be gay, reassuring her that their goodnight kiss had definitely proved otherwise. While Alex spent the night tossing and turning, unable to stop thinking about Megan, she slept soundly, feeling as if he were right there beside her. For months later, Alex came to a realization. He was in love with Megan, something she had known for quite some time. A year after that, they tied the knot in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family, then moved into Alex's house on Maplewood Avenue. As Megan put away the CD she had just played, she noticed a golden case that held a special place in her heart. It was a gift she received on her wedding day while she was getting ready with her bridesmaids. A FedEx courier had delivered the box that morning, and they found a CD player to listen to the disc inside. The song So Much Love by Dusty Springfield played, bringing tears to Megan's eyes. Her bridesmaid, Laura, had quickly warned her not to cry and ruin her makeup, and the room had erupted in laughter, averting what could have been a makeup crisis. At the church, Megan saw Alex waiting in his tuxedo, and her heart swelled with pride and joy. She had vowed that day to make him happy, but remembering this, her smile faded, and a pang of guilt washed over her as she wondered if she had truly fulfilled that promise. Quickly, she tucked the card and CD back into the gold box and reached for a silver one instead. Megan played a disc from the silver box and let herself be swept away by memories of their first wedding anniversary. She had spent the entire day preparing, even going to the salon and getting a Brazilian wax, a surprise for Alex, who had hinted he would love it. When he arrived home that evening, she descended the stairs, mesmerizing him with her beauty. He was so captivated that he fumbled and dropped the silver box he was holding, spilling its contents across the floor. Kneeling down, he gathered the items and handed her a small jewelry box, his eyes filled with love. "Happy anniversary, my love," he said. Inside was a stunning 16-inch diamond necklace. Megan was overjoyed, asking him to clasp it around her neck. She admired the necklace in the mirror, feeling it was the most beautiful gift she had ever received. Alex, overwhelmed with happiness at her reaction, watched her with pure adoration. Then he put on a CD from the box, and the familiar tune of Frank Sinatra's "The Way You Look Tonight" filled the room. Taking her hands, Alex asked, "May I have this dance, beautiful lady?" They danced slowly, lost in the love they felt for each other. When the song ended, Alex suggested they skip dinner and head straight to the bedroom, but Megan laughed and shook her head. "No way," she said. "I spent too much time and money getting ready. We're going out." Alex smiled, knowing he couldn't win this one. "All I need is you," he replied. "We can eat afterward." Megan, ever playful, reminded him, "You once said anticipation makes things better." With a grin, Alex conceded, and they enjoyed a delightful evening at a Japanese steakhouse, followed by a comedy show. They ended the night dancing and talking at a cozy piano bar. On the drive home, the anticipation between them was electric. Megan cherished the memory, recalling how perfect the night had been. She took a diamond choker from her jewelry box, kissed it softly, and felt a tear slide down her cheek as she put it away. Moving on to another silver box, she played a disc of Nat King Cole's Unforgettable. This memory was from their second anniversary. Megan had surprised Alex by waiting for him in a sheer negligee when he arrived home. He brought 2 boxes with him, and Megan insisted on opening them first. Inside were a diamond bracelet and earrings. She asked him to put them on her, and then handed him a disc to play. They spent the evening savoring each other's company, ending the night with pizza and wine. "This is even better than last year," Alex had said with a smile. Megan agreed, playfully suggesting they repeat their workout routine to burn off the pizza. The next morning, Megan had read Alex's message on the card that came with the gifts. "Unforgettable in every way, and forever that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks I'm unforgettable too." Megan smiled at the memory, though she felt a pang of loss as she remembered the pale blue negligee she had worn that night, now lost during a move. It had held such special memories. After putting the card and disc away, Megan hesitated before approaching the last white box, choosing to avoid the painful blue ones for now. The last white box symbolized something deeply personal, a turning point in her life. For Alex, it marked the loss of innocence. For Megan, it represented the time when she had started seeing Ben again, her first love, just 5 months after their second anniversary. Now a successful Dr. Harris, Ben had reappeared in Megan's life when he visited her office one day. The moment they saw each other, old feelings came rushing back. Ben suggested they grab lunch to catch up, and despite the disapproving looks from her coworkers, who adored Alex and sensed trouble, Megan agreed. That lunch with Ben was more than just a reunion. It reignited the fantasies Megan had long buried. She convinced herself it was all innocent, but deep down, she knew she was playing with fire, teetering on the edge of betraying her marriage. When she returned to the office, Laura confronted her, worried about the rumors and the potential fallout. Megan brushed off her concerns, insisting it was just lunch. But Laura, seeing through her excuses, reminded her of Ben's past betrayal and warned her not to ruin her marriage. Megan promised to keep things in check, but Laura remained unconvinced. Despite her promise, Megan's desire for Ben continued to grow, casting a shadow over her relationship with Alex. Laura, feeling she had done all she could, urged Megan to focus on her work. For the first few weeks, Megan and Ben kept their meetings to casual lunches and light conversations. But soon, those lunches turned into drinks after work, especially on the nights when Alex had to stay late at the shop. It wasn't long before their innocent meetups began to feel more like dates, with Ben carefully and patiently trying to rekindle what they once had, unsure of where it would lead. Megan's heart wrestled with conflicting emotions. She wasn't sure if what she felt for Ben was love, but the pull was undeniable, and she found herself unbothered by her marriage to Alex. While Megan struggled with her desires, she couldn't resist meeting Ben when Alex had to travel to Chicago for a business conference. He had asked her to join him, but she declined, seizing the opportunity to spend time with Ben while Alex was away for 5 days. As soon as Alex's flight departed, Megan invited Ben to their home, and they spent those 5 days and 6 nights together in the very bed she shared with her husband. Ben, ever the charmer, quickly rekindled their old flame. By the end of the week, Megan was already making plans to leave Alex for Ben, who was about to move into a new house. On Saturday morning, after Ben had left, a florist delivered a bouquet to the house along with a white box from Alex. Inside, she found a CD with the song 6 Days on the Road, which Alex had intended as a surprise. The gesture touched Megan, but it also filled her with anxiety about keeping her affair hidden. For 2 long weeks, she felt the weight of her deception. When Alex returned home at 4 p.m., eager to reunite with his wife, he was surprised and delighted to find Megan waiting for him with a kiss and a warm hug. Alex, full of anticipation after 6 days apart, hoped for an intimate evening with her. But when he suggested they spend some time together, Megan hesitated. "I'm already tired. Maybe tonight, okay?" she suggested, trying to hide her guilt. "Maybe tonight?" Alex muttered, confused. He couldn't understand the change in her demeanor. Who was this woman? And what had happened to the wife he loved? Feeling dejected, Alex quietly put away his suitcases, sorted through the laundry, and stored his toiletries. He then made his way to the kitchen, where Megan was cooking. When he tried to embrace her, she pulled away. "Not now, Alex. I'm trying to cook. Just leave me alone," she said coldly. Rejected and hurt, Alex sat in the living room, staring out the window, lost in thought. Something had clearly changed while he was away, but Megan wouldn't talk about it. She felt a pang of guilt and couldn't bring herself to meet his eyes. From the kitchen, she peeked into the living room, seeing Alex sitting there, staring blankly into space. He suspected something was wrong, and she knew it. After dinner, Alex wordlessly dragged her to the bedroom. But instead of seeking comfort, he felt even more distant. Afterward, he quickly showered, got dressed, and left the house, not returning until late Sunday night. When he finally walked through the door, Megan asked, "Where did you spend the night?" "I had paperwork at the shop," he snapped back. Megan's concern grew. "I was worried. You didn't call." Alex's response was sharp. "Don't you have a phone? Are your fingers broken?" The coldness in his voice stung, and they exchanged no more words that evening. Megan put the disc Alex had given her away, feeling the weight of her betrayal and the mess she had created. She picked up the first of the dreaded blue boxes, knowing it would be painful to relive those memories. Opening it, she found a CD but no card. She hesitated before playing the disc, which had arrived with a bouquet of lavender flowers, their scent a symbol of distrust. Reluctantly, she pressed play, and the haunting lyrics of Bob Seger's "We've Got Tonight" filled the room. "I know it's late. I know you're weary. I know your plans don't include me." Megan's heart ached as she recalled receiving this gift. The office girls, having seen her with Ben, had listened in disapproval. Rose, an older colleague, had approached Megan and asked, "What have you done?" There was no point in hiding it anymore. "I'm leaving Alex in 2 weeks," Megan had replied defiantly. "I'll be moving in with Ben." Rose had shaken her head, trying to warn her. "I think you're making a huge mistake. Your husband is crazy about you. This new guy won't last. Stop before it's too late. He already suspects something." Megan had stubbornly retorted, "It'll be his loss if he lets me go." Rose had walked away, disheartened. Grace and Laura had stayed behind, hoping to talk some sense into her. "Are you really planning on leaving Alex?" Grace had asked quietly. "Yes," Megan had replied, her anger bubbling to the surface. Grace had nodded sadly and walked away. Laura, disappointed, had added, "You didn't take my advice. Don't come crying to me when everything goes to hell." She had left too, leaving Megan to stew in her thoughts. Megan had convinced herself that her relationship with Ben would be worth the risk. But now, as she put the CD away, doubt crept in. Why hadn't she listened to Laura? That evening, when she came home, she had lashed out at Alex, accusing him of sending the song to mock her. "Why did you send me this? I'm your wife," she had yelled. "Really?" Alex had hissed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You seem more interested in someone else. That postcard and disc just confirmed my thoughts." Megan had tried to deny it. "You're wrong, Alex. Just wrong." But deep down, she knew he was right. Unable to admit the truth, she had brushed away a tear and put the blue box back on the shelf. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the second blue box. She remembered the day it had arrived, just after the Bob Seger song. It had been waiting on the porch when she got home, and she had quickly taken it inside to play before Ben arrived. Inside was a letter from Alex, expressing his heartbreak and confusion. The CD that accompanied it played Ronnie Millsap's "Stranger in My House," a song that cut deep into Megan's soul. She hadn't called Alex after hearing it, too stunned by the clarity of his words. She realized then that she had never truly been honest with him, or even with herself. As she picked up the third blue box, she knew it contained the worst memory of all. Alex had been spending more and more nights at the shop, leaving her free to meet Ben without suspicion. One Friday, believing Alex wouldn't be home until late, she had invited Ben over. Unbeknownst to her, Alex had planned to come home early that night, hoping to surprise her with flowers and a white box in a last-ditch effort to save their marriage. He had left the shop around 8:30, driven home, and immediately noticed a strange car parked in front of their house. His heart sank as he parked a few houses down and quietly entered the house, carrying the flowers and the white box. As he walked through the hallway, he heard voices and the telltale creak of the bed from upstairs. The memory of their first anniversary flashed through his mind, but it was quickly shattered by the sounds coming from their bedroom. His mood darkened, and with sweat trickling down his face, he carefully climbed the stairs, avoiding the creaky fifth step. When he reached the bedroom door, he paused, his heart pounding. Slowly, he opened the door, and what he saw confirmed his worst fears. Megan in bed with another man, her first love, Ben Harris. Tears filled Alex's eyes as his heart broke into 1,000 pieces. He knew he could confront Ben, but in that moment, he decided against it. He couldn't bear the thought of the confrontation, of seeing the love of his life with someone else. Fearing the legal consequences and the possibility of Megan testifying against him, Alex chose not to confront Ben. Instead, he quietly walked downstairs, leaving the flowers and shattered CD on the kitchen table. The sound of the slamming door echoed through the house as he left. Upstairs, Megan heard the noise and asked Ben, "Did you hear that?" Ben brushed it off, eager to continue their time together. But Megan couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in her chest. She got up, slipped on her robe, and went downstairs. Seeing the flowers and the broken CD, the reality of the situation hit her hard. Alex knew. She felt a wave of guilt wash over her, realizing she had never intended to hurt him this deeply, even though she had been planning to leave him. Ben came down, saw the flowers, and sneered. How pathetic. Megan didn't share his sentiment, but chose to stay silent. Alex stayed away for a week, and during that time, Ben practically moved in. Megan found herself regretting not keeping that broken disc. It symbolized the beginning of her downfall. She inserted another disc into the player, reading the card that came with it. As Roy Orbison's "Running Scared" played, she recalled the message that had accompanied it. Will you leave with him, or will you stay with me? The memory of receiving that box, delivered by courier without any flowers, resurfaced. Her colleagues had urged her to play the CD at work, but she had refused, knowing that anything from a blue box was bound to bring bad news. After work, she sat in her car, hesitating to open the box. Her friend Laura and colleague Rose approached, offering to listen with her without judgment. Reluctantly, Megan agreed, and they joined her in the car. In silence, they played the disc and read the card together, sharing the painful moment. Laura cried as she read the card, feeling the depth of Alex's pain and fear of losing Megan. He had poured his heart into those words, informing her that he would be returning home on Saturday morning and asking her to make a decision by then. At the end of the card, he had written, "I hope you choose me." Rose had looked at Megan and asked, "What are your plans?" "I'm leaving with Ben on Saturday morning," Megan had replied, her voice laced with determination. Rose had nodded sadly. "I wish I had a man who loved me enough to ask me back, even after cheating." Megan had snapped back. "Haven't you been divorced twice?" "Yes," Rose had admitted, "but I realized too late that Chad, my first husband, was the love of my life." Megan had stubbornly insisted, "I believe Ben is the one for me." Laura had thanked Megan for sharing and promised to keep her secret. Megan returned home to discuss her plans with Ben. He had suggested that she leave without saying anything, letting Alex come home to an empty house. "I owe it to him to tell him face to face," Megan had insisted. Then do it by Saturday, Ben had instructed. At 9:45 a.m. on Saturday, Megan sat at the kitchen table with her suitcases packed and ready by the door. Alex arrived home at 10 o'clock, his eyes immediately landing on the suitcases. Without a word, he grabbed a beer and sat across from her. "I guess you've made your decision," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "What question?" Megan asked, though she already knew the answer. "You're leaving with him," Alex replied coldly. "Yes," she admitted softly. "Then it's useless to fight for you," he said, the weight of defeat in his tone. "I'm sorry, Alex," she whispered, her voice trembling with guilt. He looked her in the eye and said icily, "I think it's time for you to get out of my house." "Will you help me take my stuff outside?" she asked, hoping for a sliver of kindness. "It's your decision to go. Carry your damn bags yourself," Alex shot back, his voice filled with anger and hurt. Stunned, Megan carried her bags to the porch and texted Ben to pick her up. She wanted to explain everything, but Alex had shut her out completely. As she looked back at the house, she saw him standing in the kitchen, silently sobbing. When he noticed her watching, he angrily removed his wedding ring and threw it onto the table. Then, he walked to the window, locked eyes with her, and slowly closed the blinds, shutting her out of his life. Megan's heart filled with dread, fearing for both Alex and Ben, knowing that Alex wouldn't easily let go. Ben arrived shortly after, loudly insulting Alex as he helped carry Megan's bags to the car. Megan was relieved that Alex didn't confront Ben, but as they drove away, she couldn't shake the feeling of regret. "I hope we could part as friends," she thought, but it was clear that was impossible now. Trying to push the confrontation out of her mind, she focused on the future, feeling a strange mix of relief and happiness at being with Ben again. She was ready to start a new life and make him happy, despite everything she had left behind. Megan placed the disc and card back into the blue box and returned it to its place. It's ironic, she mused. She had once promised Alex that she would do everything to make him happy, but she had failed miserably. She pulled out the next blue box, knowing exactly what painful memory it held. Inside was a CD, but no card, reminding her of a conversation she'd had with Alex's cousin Janice on her wedding day. Janice had confronted Megan at the wedding, asking if she truly loved Alex and warning her not to hurt him. She had shared stories of Alex's painful past, losing his mother to cancer at just 7 years old, his father's descent into alcoholism, and the feeling of being a burden to his adoptive family. Alex had grown up isolated and tough, with a reputation for getting into fights. Megan recalled Janice mentioning Alex's scars, which he had told her were from military shrapnel, except for a knife wound from defending Janice in a bar fight. Janice had recounted the incident in vivid detail. Alex had saved her from 2 aggressive men, cementing her protective feelings towards him. Megan had never known this side of Alex, and it had made her love him even more. She had promised Janice that she would never hurt him, a promise that now felt hollow and broken. Reflecting on all of this, Megan felt a deep sense of regret. This was another promise I hadn't kept, she thought sadly. She remembered the day that particular blue box had arrived at her office. It had come via FedEx on the Monday after their confrontation. There were no flowers this time, just the cold reminder of everything she had thrown away. Megan figured Alex thought she no longer deserved the gestures that once symbolized their love. After work, she played the CD in the car for Laura and Rose. Although the disc came without a card, its message was clear. Megan shared her story, the tragic losses of her family, her loveless upbringing, and how Alex had given her the love and acceptance she'd never known before. As the Bee Gees' "To Love Somebody" played, Megan was struck by the lyrics. "There's a light, a certain kind of light that never shone on me. I'm a man. Can't you see what I am? I live and breathe for you." Tears streamed down Megan's cheeks as the realization hit her. She was the light Alex had needed, but she had stolen that light from him. Regret washed over her. If she had known then what she knew now, she would still be married to Alex. She carefully put the blue box back and reached for the last white box, recalling the day it had arrived, just a week after the BG CD. As Megan, Laura, and Rose were leaving work that Friday, they heard someone call out, "Megan, wait." Turning around, they saw Alex running toward them, dressed in his usual tight blue jeans, a blue short-sleeve shirt, and work boots. Megan had to admit to herself that he looked good. Rose whispered, "If he were mine, I don't think I could throw him back." Megan shot her a scornful look as Alex approached, holding a white box in his left hand. "Hi," Alex said, his eyes scanning Megan from her knees to her eyes. After a moment, he turned to Rose and Laura, nodding in greeting. They nodded back. Alex then focused on Megan and said, "You look good." "Thank you," Megan replied, feeling the awkwardness settle between them. An uncomfortable silence followed until Alex finally spoke again. "Megan, I need to talk to you for a few minutes. Do you mind?" "I don't know, Alex. I have to go home. Ben will be waiting for me," Megan replied, trying to avoid the conversation. "It'll only take a few minutes." "Surely, you can spare 5 minutes for an old friend," Alex pressed gently. Realizing he wasn't looking for a fight, Megan reluctantly agreed. Alex turned to Rose and Laura. "I'd like to talk to Megan alone if you don't mind." As he began walking Megan toward her car, Rose and Laura trailed behind. Noticing this, Alex smiled wryly and said, "Looks like I'll have to do this in front of you all." Turning back to Megan, he added, "Please, let me finish without interrupting. I have to say everything, or I won't be able to get through it." "Okay." Megan nodded, bracing herself. Alex began, "I know I don't have a college degree, and I'm not great at expressing my feelings. I'll try to show my love through songs and meaningful lyrics, but I guess I failed. I loved you more than you'll ever know and was happy with our life. I didn't see your unhappiness, and for that I'm sorry." He handed her the box. "This is my last gift to you. If you don't respond to the song, I won't bother you again. I'll never come to your workplace or your new home. If I see you on the street, it'll be random. And if your car breaks down, you can bring it in, but this time, I'll charge you." Megan smiled faintly, remembering their first meeting when Alex had fixed her car. "That's all I wanted to say," he added, starting to walk away. But then he stopped and turned back one last time. "One more thing. Thank you for 3 wonderful years. The best of my life. I'll always remember you with love." Finally, he addressed Rose and Laura. "Ladies, I'm glad Megan has friends like you. I know you'll look out for her. And for the record, I'd never do anything to hurt her." His voice broke with emotion, but he continued, "This is goodbye. I wish you both the best." Rose, in tears, hugged Alex and promised to let him know if anyone ever bothered Megan. Laura did the same. Alex then walked away without looking back, hiding his tears. Rose turned to Megan and said, "If you let him go after that, Ben must be something special." Laura, who had always thought Ben was bad news, shook her head, still believing Megan was making a mistake. The 3 women got into Megan's car to listen to the CD. Once again, there was no card or note. Megan hesitated before inserting it into the player, looking at Rose and Laura. "Should I listen to it?" Megan asked, uncertain. Laura shrugged. "Suit yourself. I'm not getting involved." Rose spoke up. After he poured his heart out, "You owe it to yourself to listen. You owe him that much." Driven by curiosity and a lingering sense of obligation, Megan slid the disc into the player. The Beatles' That Boy played, and Megan knew immediately why Alex had chosen it. The song perfectly captured his situation. Someone had taken Megan away from him. Ben wanted her, but not the way Alex did. Despite everything, Alex would still take her back, believing that Ben would eventually hurt her. As Megan listened to the song, she began to understand its significance. Alex and the Beatles were right. That boy took my love away. She hadn't understood or believed it then, and now it was too late. Alex's efforts to communicate through songs had failed. She placed the Beatles' CD back in the box, remembering Alex's heartfelt words. Megan recalled the first white box arriving on a Sunday morning while she was heading to the mall with Laura. Alex had planned a picnic for the afternoon, and Megan wanted to buy new clothes for the occasion. As they drove, Laura had asked, "How's it going with your mechanic?" Megan, annoyed, had snapped back, "He's not just a mechanic. He owns his own business." "Calm down, I was just joking." "So, what's going on between you two?" Laura had inquired, genuinely curious. "He loves me. I can tell by the way he smiles when he sees me. He always takes care of my car and waits for me with lunch. He's protective and treats me well," Megan had said. "And how do you know that?" Laura had asked, probing deeper. "He hasn't said it yet, but I think he's waiting for me to make the first move. He's shy around women." "And you? Do you love him?" Laura had asked, pressing the question that Megan wasn't ready to answer. Megan hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at her. I'm not sure. It's been so long since I felt anything close to love, Megan replied, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Not being sure won't cut it with a guy like Alex, Laura pressed. You need to be certain. Do you love him? Megan hesitated. I think I do, but Ben is still on my mind. Frustrated, Laura snapped. Ben deceived you. He left and never came back. Alex loves you, and he's here. If you want to keep him, you need to make up your mind soon, or you'll lose him. Megan mulled over Laura's words. She believed she loved Alex, but the thoughts of Ben kept creeping back. Still, she knew deep down that Alex was the best thing that had ever happened to her. That evening, Megan prepared for their date at River Park. Alex brought food, wine, and a blanket for their picnic. They had a wonderful day, but Alex had to leave early for a business meeting with Avis. I know you have to go, but will you call me tomorrow after the meeting? Megan asked. Alex kissed her gently. You can count on it. After he left, Megan changed into comfortable clothes. Later, the doorbell rang. Surprised, she found Alex at the door. Did you forget something? Megan asked, pleasantly surprised. Panting slightly, Alex replied, Yes, you. He embraced her and kissed her deeply. Then he stepped back, holding out a thin white box. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with an important business partner. I can speak confidently with him, but with you, I struggle. He stuttered slightly, handing her the box. I hope this shows how I feel. Call me anytime. Megan took the box, watching him drive away. Inside, she found a CD and a note. She inserted the CD into the player, and Randy Travis's Can I Trust You With My Heart began to play. The note had the same line written on it. That night, Megan called Alex. Hello. Alex answered, his voice hopeful. You can trust me with your heart, she replied softly. I'll be right back, Alex shouted into the phone. He rushed back to her house, picked her up, and carried her inside. I love you, Megan, he said with all the sincerity he could muster. I feel the same way, Megan replied, and that night, they made love for the first time. But in her heart, she hadn't yet fully admitted her love for him. Remembering that night now, Megan cried, realizing that she had loved him all along, but it was too late. She set the white box aside and pulled out a black one. It had been 3 weeks since she last spoke to Alex. True to her word, she hadn't seen or heard from him since. On Friday morning, Ben casually asked, Want to go out to eat tonight? How about Kelly's downtown? No, Megan snapped, her irritation clear. Alex and I used to go there. Let's try the new bar and grill near your work. I'll drive, and you can pick me up at 5. Ben agreed, and they went to Easton, a new pub. The moment they walked in, Megan sensed the hostility from the staff. They sat in a back booth, and to her shock, she saw Alex enter and sit at the bar. Did you know he was coming? She asked Ben, her voice tinged with suspicion. No, of course not, Ben replied, smirking slightly. Megan knew he was lying. Ben got up, went to the bar, and pretended to just notice Alex. Hey, buddy, I didn't see you there. Alex simply looked at him, then turned back to his drink. Ben smirked. Don't get upset. She picked the best man, and it wasn't you. Alex replied quietly. Yeah, she picked you. That's right. Ben laughed. She chose me over you. He walked away, clearly pleased with himself. Megan was horrified. Alex didn't deserve this. She watched him finish his drink and approach her. The bartender told Alex that his drink was on the house. Alex got up, walked over to Megan, and faced her. That was low, Megan, even for you. Did you enjoy seeing me humiliated? I promised not to bother you, and I didn't. Do I get it now? You two were made for each other, Alex said, his voice laced with disgust. I didn't know anything about this, Alex. You have to believe me. I didn't know you'd be here or that Ben would do this, Megan pleaded, desperate for him to understand. Why should I believe you after what you did? I don't trust you, and I sure as hell don't like him. Alex snapped back, his voice full of hurt and anger. Ben walked over, grinning. Are you still here? Alex just stared at him, his hand clenching into a fist. Megan recalled Alex teaching her how to throw a proper punch, and she noticed a flicker of fear in Ben's eyes. A waitress approached with drinks and intervened. This is no place for that. Without taking his eyes off Ben, Alex responded, "You're probably right, Amanda." He then backed away and left the pub, with Ben following him to the exit, watching him go. Amanda placed the drinks on the table and said, "So you dumped Alex for that idiot? This is the third time he's done this to Alex." She walked away, shaking her head in disbelief. When Ben returned, visibly upset, he demanded, "What did he talk to you about?" Before Megan could respond, a man approached their table. "I'm Paul. I was at your wedding with Alex," he said. "I'm sorry, I don't remember you," Megan replied, feeling her face flush with embarrassment. "I'm Alex's friend," Paul continued. "Tonight's meal is on the house, but you need to leave immediately and never come back." Megan's face turned red with shame. Ben laughed, but Paul's tone grew more serious. "Alex won't cause trouble, but if he sees you again, run. He won't be merciful," Paul warned, his tone serious. Ben smirked. "I'm not afraid of him." "Don't say you weren't warned," Paul replied, his eyes narrowing. Megan ate in silence, seething with anger at Ben for setting up Alex like that. She had liked Paul and his wife and wished she could come back to this place, but Ben hadn't even left a tip that night. It was the beginning of their first serious fight. Ben was furious, unable to understand why she seemed to be siding with Alex. Megan realized then that Ben couldn't keep Alex away if Alex didn't want to stay away. She felt a mixture of sadness and relief, knowing that part of her life was over for good. Tears flowed as the memories became too painful, but she knew she had to keep going through the boxes. A week later at work, Megan saw Alex's cousin, Janice, enter the office. She looked professional, but visibly furious. Without hesitation, Janice marched up to Megan's desk, an attaché case in hand. "You're not very good at keeping your promises, Megan," Janice hissed. "I'm sorry, Janice. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did," Megan replied, trying to keep her composure. Janice picked up Megan's nameplate, examining it closely. "Are you still Megan Holden?" "Yes," Megan answered, her voice barely a whisper. "Good," Janice said, setting down the nameplate and placing the attaché case on the desk. She pulled out a white folder and dropped it in front of Megan. "You've been served," she declared coldly. Then, with a harsh glare, she threw a black box on top of the folder. "You stupid, cheating witch. You hurt him. He's too good for you, and now his heart is broken. Maybe he'll find someone else who deserves him. Listen to the CD. It's beautiful. My cousin was always too good for you." As Janice turned to leave, someone in the office yelled, "Wait!" Grace stood up and walked over to Janice. They exchanged a few quiet words, and Janice nodded, a small smile breaking through her anger. Grace handed something to Janice, who nodded again and left, laughing softly to herself. Grace returned to her desk, a smile on her face. Megan opened the box and pulled out a CD. There was no card this time, but Rose and Laura came over to listen with her. "Do you want to listen now or wait until the end of the day in the car?" Laura asked. Megan replied, "Janice said it was beautiful. Why not now?" She inserted the disc, and Garth Brooks' The Dance played. The song's lyrics reflected Alex's feelings about their time together. Despite the pain, he cherished the memories they had shared. Rose and Laura cried, moved by the song, but Megan couldn't bring herself to cry. The office women were deeply touched, but Megan finally understood the depth of Alex's message. She put the CD back in the box, knowing she would see Alex one more time when they finalized the divorce. The papers split everything 50-50, except for Alex's business, which Megan didn't care about. She signed the documents, and a month after the 6-month waiting period, Ben and Megan were married. Ben's practice was thriving, and they bought a house not far from where Alex lived. As Ben's work demands grew, he began staying late more often. One Friday night, Ben's secretary called Megan to let her know he'd be late. Deciding to surprise him, Megan prepared dinner and took it to his office. But when she arrived, she saw 2 cars in the parking lot, Ben's and an unfamiliar one. She unlocked the office door and followed the sound of voices to an exam room. Opening the door, she found Ben with another woman. Furious, Megan threw the chicken cacciatore at them and stormed out. As she drove away, she couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. She called Laura, who was at a bachelorette party, and explained that she needed to talk. They agreed to meet outside the East Avenue pub. Laura warned Megan that Alex was there with a new girl, but Megan didn't care. As she drove, Megan reflected on her situation. She now fully understood the pain and humiliation Alex must have felt when he had seen her with Ben. She realized she had no one to turn to but her friends, just as Alex had endured his pain alone. When Megan arrived at the pub, she opened her car door to let Laura and Rose in. She was still sobbing softly, and Laura immediately asked what was wrong. Megan, struggling to speak, eventually calmed down enough to recount what she had seen. I walked in on my new husband with a 40-year-old bleached blonde woman on the examination table. Megan growled, her voice thick with anger. Neither Laura nor Rose was surprised. They had always thought Ben was an idiot and were more surprised that it had taken Megan so long to see it. They tried to support her, but they didn't offer much sympathy. "What goes around comes around," Rose said pointedly. "I know," Megan cried. "I betrayed and humiliated Alex, and now I understand the pain and humiliation I caused him. I never felt it until now." Laura and Rose exchanged glances, deciding not to scold Megan further. Instead, Rose asked, "What are you going to do next?" Megan replied, "I don't know. I'm so confused." After a moment, she made a decision. "I'm going home to confront Ben. What he did is unacceptable. Do you want us to come with you?" Laura asked. "No, I have to do this on my own," Megan replied, her voice resolute. The girls got out of the car and watched Megan drive away. They walked back into the pub and saw Alex at the bar. He greeted them warmly, but they responded coolly. "I'm sorry," Alex said, puzzled by their demeanor. "I'll go." "Alex, wait," Laura called out. "It's not what you think. We need to talk to you." Alex checked with his dinner companion, who nodded, and he joined Laura and Rose at their table. "Why are you giving me a hard time?" he asked, clearly confused. "It's not you," Rose explained. "We got some bad news tonight. Is there anything I can do to help?" Alex asked, his concern genuine. "There probably is, but I don't think you want to know," Laura replied. "What are you talking about?" Alex asked, his curiosity piqued. "It has to do with Megan," Laura said, her tone somber. Alex's demeanor changed instantly. "What you got to do with it?" he asked, his voice tinged with both anger and concern. "She just caught Ben cheating tonight," Laura whispered, watching as Alex's face went blank before he let out a bitter laugh. "Karma's a witch," he said, his voice laced with dark humor. "Why are you telling me this?" "Nothing," Rose replied, her tone neutral. "We just thought you should know why we came down here today." Alex's demeanor softened. "Where is she now?" "She went home to confront him," Laura replied. "That's a bad idea. Ben's a coward, but he could hurt a defenseless woman," Alex warned. Rose snapped. "If he's such a coward, why didn't you fight for her?" Alex looked down, sadness clouding his eyes. "She said she loved him and didn't love me anymore. Fighting wouldn't change that. I was in a lose-lose situation. Do you understand now?" Rose nodded, a bit embarrassed by her outburst. Laura asked gently, "So, what are you going to do?" "Nothing. It's not my problem anymore," Alex replied, his voice resolute. "You can't say that. You loved her once," Laura reminded him. "That was a long time ago. People and things change," Alex said, his tone firm. Rose spoke up, her voice softening. "Alex, I've known you for 5 years, and I've talked to Paul about you. You're highly regarded here. Even when you've had fights with friends, you still help them out. Megan was your best friend, and despite everything, you didn't abandon her. Maybe it's your upbringing or your military background, but you don't let people down. You're not going to change now." Alex sighed deeply. "Rose, this is a family matter to be decided in court. If she ever needs help, I'll be there, but this doesn't qualify. He hurt her, but she hurt me too. I'm staying out of their mess. Maybe she'll fight for this marriage. It's not for me to get involved now." After an awkward silence, Alex said, "Ladies, it would be nice to see you under different circumstances. Hopefully we can have a drink and laugh next time. But for now, I need to get back to my date." As he walked away, he added, "Remember, if anything bad happens, let me know." Both women nodded, watching as Alex returned to his table. His dinner companion seemed to scold him gently, but then she placed her hand on his and said, "I understand." Alex pushed his food away, and they eventually left the pub. Laura and Rose exchanged worried glances, wondering how Megan would handle confronting Ben. They paid the bill and left the bar in low spirits. On Monday and Tuesday, Megan called in sick. Laura was concerned but hesitant. On Tuesday, she called Ben's office and learned it was open and that Ben was working. She left a message for Megan, but it went unanswered. Laura and Rose decided that if Megan didn't return to work by Wednesday, they would visit her at home. At 9:05 a.m. on Wednesday, Megan finally arrived at work, wearing large sunglasses to hide the bruises. Laura and Rose quickly took her to the ladies' room, where they saw the damage. With tears streaming down her face, Megan recounted the events. When she had gotten home that night, Ben had immediately started yelling, "Where have you been? Who are you talking to? Why did you throw food at us?" She was an important client, Megan had retorted. "So important that you had to entertain her on the exam table?" Furious, Ben had growled, "From now on, if I want to work late, you'll just have to deal with it. If you don't like it, you can leave. Do you understand?" Megan had nodded, horrified. The next morning, she woke up with a swollen face, spending the day trying to reduce the swelling, relieved that Ben was absent. He returned on Sunday afternoon without explanation, and Megan didn't ask. That night, Ben wanted attention, but Megan declined. Ben left in a huff, and the next day, after showering and changing clothes, he headed back to the office as if nothing had happened. As Megan recounted her story, the girls listened in stunned silence, first shocked by what they were hearing, then growing angrier by the minute. "You need to go to the police and have him arrested for assault," Laura urged. "No," Megan cried, shaking her head. "I want this marriage to work. I've already messed up one marriage. I can't give up on this one so quickly." The women exploded in frustration. "He did something disgusting to you. Do you think this is the last time?" Rose shouted, her voice filled with anger. "I know," Megan replied, her voice trembling. "But I just can't give up so easily." Laura, growing more frustrated, finally threw up her hands. "I don't know what to do. I'm giving up," she said, and walked away. Rose left too, but not before quickly snapping a picture of Megan's bruises on her phone. She knew exactly what she was going to do next. Rose left work early and drove to Alex's shop. She parked and walked up to the door, where Alex was busy working on a car. He grabbed a rag and smiled as Rose approached. "Good to see you, Rose. Having car trouble?" he asked, wiping his hands. "No, I need to talk to you in private," she said, her tone serious. Alex looked puzzled, but led her to a small office in the back. Once inside, Rose finally blurted out, "Megan's having problems with Ben." Alex's expression darkened. "Any problems with that creep are no longer my concern," he said coldly. "Remember when you gave her the Beatles box?" Rose asked, trying to soften his stance. "Yeah, it didn't work out. She ripped my heart out. Why should I care now?" Alex ranted, his voice tinged with bitterness. Rose pulled out her phone and showed him the picture of Megan's bruised face. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his tone slightly softer but still guarded. "Are you going to do something? You said you'd protect her," Rose pressed, her voice trembling with emotion. "Call the police." "It looks like assault to me," Alex replied, still holding back. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" Rose was furious now. She had an affair. She broke her vows. "Why should I care about her pain?" Alex asked, his voice rising with frustration. "Because you love her. Isn't that a good enough reason?" Rose declared, her eyes pleading with him. "I loved her once, but not anymore." "Tell her to call the police," Alex replied, his voice firm, signaling the end of the conversation. "I won't get involved," Alex stated firmly. Rose shook her head, disappointment clear in her eyes. "You really surprised me today. I thought better of you." Alex stood up, anger flaring in his eyes. "She's not my wife anymore. She chose him over me. She made her bed. Now she can lie in it. Tell her to get a divorce. I'm sorry if I disappointed you, Rose, but I just can't." Rose left the office, her face flushed with frustration. As she got in her car, she muttered, "I'm sorry I bothered you today. I hope I didn't ruin your evening." Alex stood in the middle of the shop, watching her drive away. He didn't respond, but his face was a storm of emotions. Pain, anger, contempt, and perhaps even hatred. Whatever was going through his mind, He had made his decision not to help. As Rose drove off, she couldn't help but think, Megan, you've really screwed this up. She had been so sure Alex would help, but now she felt utterly defeated. She didn't know how to help Megan anymore. Megan managed to come to work on Thursday and Friday, but by Monday, she was noticeably more irritable. Then, on Monday morning, something changed. Megan walked in, greeted everyone, and even smiled, something she hadn't done in a long time. Laura and Rose quickly pulled her into the women's restroom and locked the door. "What's going on, Megan? What happened?" Laura asked, her concern evident. Megan took a deep breath before answering. Ben was attacked Friday night outside his office. Whoever did it made him promise to apologize to me and threatened to come back if he didn't. Ben doesn't know who it was, but I do. "How do you know?" Rose asked, intrigued. "I heard him cursing my ex-husband Alex in the shower." Megan giggled softly. "How did Alex know about it?" Rose inquired. "I told him on Wednesday after work," Rose admitted, looking a bit sheepish. Megan hugged Rose tightly, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Rose. I'm leaving Ben and getting a divorce." "Don't thank me, Megan. I didn't rough up your husband," Rose replied. "Maybe you should thank Alex yourself." "I don't know, Rose. He's not too fond of me right now," Megan hesitated. "I know, but you should still thank him in person," Rose insisted. That evening, Laura, Rose, and Megan went to the East Avenue pub. They sat at a table near Alex, who was deep in thought, sipping his drink. Laura gestured for Megan to go over to him. Nervously, Megan approached her ex-husband and sat down next to him, noticing his bandaged arm. "That must really hurt," she said, gently touching his bandaged hand. Without looking at her, Alex replied, "It's not that bad." "What do you need, Megan?" "Please, I just want to talk, not fight." "Do you mind?" she asked, her voice soft. He nodded, signaling for her to continue. "I want to thank you for what you did on Friday. I know it was you. After everything I did, you still helped me when I needed someone. I had to thank you in person," she said, her voice full of sincerity. Alex finally turned to face her, pulling his bandaged hand away. "You wanted to thank me? It wasn't necessary. Were you worried about me that morning when you left me? Did you care about my pain? No. You only cared about yourself. Why do you care now? You got what you wanted, a doctor's wife instead of a mechanic's. So you used me. My hands hurt. My girlfriend dumped me for helping you, and I could still go to jail. Tomorrow, you'll have someone else in your bed. The only company I have is my pain. Why don't you go away? All three of you. Just leave me alone." Megan shook her head at Alex's words, feeling the weight of his pain. Looking her straight in the eye, he said, "Just leave." Megan's face went pale as she realized just how much she had hurt him. She hadn't fully grasped the depth of his suffering until now. Before she could respond, Alex silenced her with a wave of his bandaged hand. "If you don't leave, then I will," he spat. He quickly slid off the bar stool and left, giving Rose and Laura a disapproving glance as he passed. Megan was shaken, her mind reeling from the encounter. She looked at her friends with a confused expression. "Go after him, Megan," Laura urged. But before she could react, they saw Alex driving away in his truck. The women went to Laura's house to discuss the night, unhappy with how things had turned out. Megan, feeling the weight of the night, pulled out the last blue box. There was no note inside. She placed the CD into the player and listened as Randy Travis's "I Told You So" filled the room. As the lyrics played, Megan's heart broke all over again. She remembered the Wednesday night when a small package had arrived for her in the mail. From the handwriting, she knew it was from Alex. She had opened the box at Laura's apartment, crying as she listened to the song. "Suppose I called you tonight and told you that I loved you. And suppose I said I want to come back home." The song's words mirrored the thoughts that had haunted her since she left Alex. She realized then that Alex had been trying to reach out to tell her how much he still cared, but she had been too blind to see it. The realization that Alex was done with her, that he would never let her back into his life, hit her hard. For the first time in a long while, Megan burst into tears, overwhelmed by the understanding of how foolish she had been to give him up. Megan couldn't stop thinking about what she had lost with Alex. Not long after receiving that last package, she quit her job at the insurance company, unable to bear the judgment from her former co-workers. She took a receptionist position at a local doctor's office. The pay wasn't great, but it offered her the peace she desperately needed. For 3 months, Megan stayed with Laura before renting a small apartment from an elderly patient she had befriended. Her divorce from Ben was progressing, and she began receiving alimony, which, combined with her job, was just enough to cover her rent. Determined to make amends, Megan tried to reconnect with Alex, calling and leaving messages, but he never responded. This only fueled her resolve. She sent emails to his old address, hoping for a reply, but there was nothing. Undeterred, she pressed on. One Friday night, Megan and Laura planned to go out. Megan picked Laura up, and as they arrived at Laura's apartment, they were surprised to see Alex's cousin, Janice, and Megan's former co-worker, Rose, standing in the parking lot. "What are they doing here?" Laura wondered aloud. "I have no idea, but I'm not thrilled about seeing Janice again." "And why is Rose with her?" Megan replied, perplexed. Laura had a suspicion, but kept it to herself. They got out of the car and cautiously approached Janice and Rose. Janice waited until Megan and Laura were close before speaking. "Hi, Megan," Janice said. "Grace, and I need to talk to you about something important. Can we go inside and talk privately?" Megan was wary, memories of their last encounter flashing in her mind. "What is this about, Janice?" "I don't want any trouble," she replied. "Why don't you just leave her alone? Why bring up old wounds?" Laura pleaded. Rose looked sympathetically at Laura and Megan. "I would, but Megan needs to know about this." "Please, can we talk inside?" she asked. Confused, Megan looked at Laura, who nodded. "Let's go inside," Megan agreed. Inside Megan's small apartment, they made small talk, with Janice and Rose complimenting her on the decor. Finally, seated at the kitchen table, Rose got to the point. "Megan, I know you've been sending letters, emails, and calls to Alex," Rose began. "What business is it of yours? It's a free country. If I want to call him, I will." "He never told me to stop," Megan retorted, her frustration evident. "He wants you to stop? He's too polite to tell you. Afraid you won't take it well," Rose informed her gently. Janice interjected. "Please hear us out, Megan. We don't want to make things difficult, but you need to know that Alex and Grace are getting married next Saturday." Megan was stunned. Her eyes welled up with tears, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. "Megan, please stop contacting Alex. I'm a jealous woman, and I won't be comfortable with another woman trying to reach my new husband," Grace said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Too bad you never understood the gift you had. I knew its meaning the first time I heard When I Fall in Love on your CD player." Janice then pulled out a thin red box and handed it to Megan. "Listen to the CD inside. We're sorry about how things turned out, but you needed to know," Janice said gently. After Janice and Rose left, Megan turned to Laura. "Did you know about this?" Laura nodded guiltily. "Yes, Grace told us a few weeks ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I knew it would hurt." Megan, feeling numb, inserted the CD into her player. The Shirelles' 1963 hit Foolish Little Girl played. "You broke his heart and made him cry. And now he's found someone new. Foolish little girl, you didn't want him when he wanted you. He's found another love, and there's nothing you can do about it." Megan realized that Janice was right. There was nothing she could do to fix her life now. She needed to stop trying to reclaim what she had lost. It was her fault that Alex and Grace were probably celebrating their upcoming marriage while she was nothing more than a distant memory. For the first time, Megan fully understood what the gift had been, Alex's love, something she had carelessly discarded, but that Grace had recognized and cherished from the start. It was a bitter realization, one that came too late. All she could do now was accept the consequences of her choices and the life she had thrown away.